Hi everybody in the US and Canada. This is Jane Leach, and tonight I've got the amazing Diana Page joining me to share with you how to make contact, how to answer any questions that you may have asked when you're prospecting, how to engage with people by using text messages. We'll also be going through how to keep track of your prospecting, as well as how to use the video, and also how to do a one-to-one. And tonight we're going to be kind of pulling it all together. So this week coming, you can be comfortable and confident in the way that you reach out to people, that you talk to them, that you're able to answer their questions, and also get in front of them either face-to-face or online to share some information with them. So what I'm going to do now is hand you over to Diana Page. She is a Sapphire Manager. She is a level 2 chairman's bonus. She's in the top FBOs in the UK, so I can think of nobody better than Diana to take you through this section of the webinar tonight. So over to you, Diana.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jane. Hi, everyone. Now, for those of you who are new to the business, if you are anything like me when I first started with Forever, the idea of speaking to people about this opportunity filled me with fear. It made me feel like every time I opened my mouth to speak with anyone that my tongue swelled up like the size of an elephant. And I don't know why that is. I don't know what it is we're so fearful of, because ultimately all we're doing is inviting people to have a look at some information. We're not asking them to join. We're not asking them to buy. We're just inviting them to have a look at some information which may or may not be of interest to them going forward. And yet in my near 16 years now with Forever and myself and working with new FBOs, it is something that we do take some time to, I guess, educate, because if people understand in detail the purpose of what we're doing and the best way to approach people, the fear really subsides, and you can have a lot of fun with in sharing the opportunity. So if we look at your profiles, so for example, on the screen we see Susan Smith, so you will have taken a little bit of time to write out 20 or 30 profiles in terms of who they are, what they do they work, what are their key hot buttons going forward, what do you want to do with them, send them a video to have a look at, or meet up to do a one-to-one either over a coffee or online, and their hot button being what could this opportunity give to them. So tonight, if we look at taking it to the next step, I really want to highlight what's in your first steps to manager, top left here, about being prepared and about making the call. Because this next bit is where most people slip up. When I'm working with new FBOs, if they're not getting people to say yes at the end of that invitation call, I know they're missing this little bit. So if we think, just quickly recap, be prepared. Before you want to speak to anybody about the opportunity, it's really important to do your profile. You want to decide your objective, and your objective is, do you want to send them a video to have a look at? Do you want to meet up for a coffee or do a one-to-one online? Here's the next thing, plan your words. And this is something that a lot of people say, well, I don't need to write down what I'm going to say. I've known this person 10 or 15 years, or I've known this person since I've been to school with them. And yet planning your words and writing down what you're going to say is what's going to help you be focused on the call. It'll stop you from waffling all over the place and floundering. So when you're speaking to them, you can get to the point. You're going to keep it brief. You're going to be excited. You're going to be focusing on what's in it for them. And remember, the objective is just to invite them to have a look at some information and either send them the video or book that time online or over coffee to take them through a one-to-one. And if you focus on being prepared for that contact, you know, the first time I wrote a profile, it probably took me about 10 or 15 minutes because I ummed and ahed about what I was actually going to say to the person. But it's like everything else, the more you do, the more confident, skilled you're going to be. And now it takes me about 30 or 40 seconds, if that, to write a profile. And yes, as a Sapphire Manager, I still write profiles, because if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And I don't want to fail in my contacts with people. So the more prepared I am, the more successful my approaches and my contacts are going to be. Everything you need is in your first steps to manager. I can't emphasize that enough. If by now you haven't twigged that actually you should be studying the first steps to manager as if you were going to sit a test or an exam, then I would encourage you to take that approach to it, because everything you need is in here. We have the best words taken from all the top leaders that we know will help you get people around the sponsoring cycle. So if we look at the contact stage here is simply an invitation. The show stage is what I would say a presentation, and the business presentation is the final information. And that those three steps, contact, show, and business presentation, are kind of like a three-course meal: breakfast, lunch, and supper. And I know for me, if someone had served me breakfast, lunch, and supper all in one bowl or all in one plate, or even worse yet, chucked it all in a blender, liquidized it, and then served it, it wouldn't be appetizing at all, would it? So I want you to think about these three stages: contact, show, and business presentation, as breakfast, lunch, and supper. And the moment you start to cross over and blend the meals, it no longer becomes appetizing. So even though your contact may be open to a new idea, open to a new opportunity, because of the way we blended it and liquidized it, they're no longer interested. So just keep in mind there are three separate stages, and we've laid the information out in the first steps to manager to guide you through those three separate stages. So if we look at getting prepared to make that contact, we know that the simplest way to make that initial contact is to think through think about personalizing the forever opportunity for that specific individual. And the way we do that is on the profile. It asks us for three personality or characteristics of that individual. And so if you look at your profile sheet, if I just go back, if you look at your profile sheet, or one more, you can see here it gives you some examples. Now, if how you would describe that person isn't on here, then just write in 2 or 3 characteristics or traits that you would use to describe that person. And the second key part of your profile is here, this hot button bit. What I would write in here are 3 things that I feel this opportunity could offer them. So Susan Smith here in this example is a parent. She's a nurse. She's working full-time. She has 2 children, and I would say that as a hot button, as a mom, she's probably what she could benefit from is more work-life balance, working flexibly. This opportunity could still give her an environment where she's helping people, because as a nurse, her vocation is she enjoys and finds rewarding helping people. So I would write in flexibility, helping people, an extra income, or replacing her nursing income without having to do shift work and having to do shift work or nights, because a lot of nurses work nights and shift. Now, this is just, I'm just guessing now. I'm just making this up looking at this example profile. So when you're looking at your written profile, think through the picture that you've put together about this person. What do you think 3 things are that this opportunity could offer that person? Because we're going to personalize it. If you remember here, we think about what's in it for them. And that hot button is all about what's in it for them. I'll give you an example. When I first started, I got this really wrong. Really, really, really wrong. And a great example which sticks out in my mind, I was a mom at home with my 6-month-old baby. I didn't go back to work, and yet I was calling a lot of my ex-colleagues. And a lot of my ex-colleagues were men who had wives who stayed at home with their children. So I can remember making a couple of calls saying, I'm really excited because I'm able to stay home with my baby. That was my hot button. It wasn't their hot button. So because I wasn't talking to what would matter most to them, they immediately said, no, this wouldn't be for them. When I turned it around and thought about what would get them interested, I said things like, what if you could, earn double what you're earning but working half the hours? Would you be open to having a look at some information? It's thinking about what's relevant for them. So when we're making the call, we want to use the information that's listed in our profile. We want to use a personality or characteristics and the hot button. Now on here, you can also use the approach where you just value their opinion. When I'm working with new people, I tend to focus on this steps 1 to 7. And steps 1 to 7 makes it really, really simple to get confident in making sure you've got all the key elements in that first contact with someone. And I'll take you through the phone call first, and then I'll take you through if you normally speak to people on Messenger or WhatsApp or some sort of written communication, how you can send them a message first and then take it offline. So we'll do that in a second. I just want to focus on the actual call to start with. And it's really simple. The thing is, you've got to write it down. You have to write down what you're going to say. When I'm working with a new FBO, if they've made 5, 10, or 15 contacts, and very few people have said, yes, I'll have a look at the information, do you know what I asked to see? I asked to see their written profiles. And I guarantee in every single case, they haven't written out what they're going to say, which means they haven't been prepared, which means by the time they get the person on the phone, they've got the liquidizer out of the cupboard and they're doing breakfast, lunch, and supper all at the same time. And it's just not effective, and we spoil the opportunity for us and for them. So if we look at steps 1 to 7 in your book, it's really straightforward. We've captured all the relevant parts of the conversation. It's not about memorizing a script, okay, guys? You have to use your own words. You got to sound like you when you talk to your network. So don't try and sound like me. Don't try and sound like Jane. Don't try and sound like anybody else. You got to sound like you. So for each step of the conversation, we have given you some different phrases, but if those phrases don't sound like you, put it in your own words. That's the whole point of it, is you got to sound like you. It's having a conversation. So if we use the example of Susan Smith, who's on the previous slide, if I was going to give her a call, would I be writing down the bottom half of that profile? So in my first steps to manager, I've got the top half profile written, and now I would write out what I'm going to say, and I would write it in steps 1 to 7, just like you see in your book. And I would write out, hey Susan, how are you doing? Have you got a minute? Which is number 1. Number 2, I'd say I just started doing some work with an amazing company, and you know what, I wanted to share it with you. Number 3, I'm really not sure if it's going to be up your street. Number 4, but I thought of you because you're outgoing, you're good with people, and you got a great attitude. Number 5, I'm not sure if it's for you, but I know it can give you a chance to earn some extra income by working a lot more flexibly around your children and still doing something where you're helping other people, which I know is really important to you. Number 6, I just want to share some information with you. Number 7, can I just send you a video to have a look at? And or could we meet up for a coffee and I'll tell you more about it? All I've done is follow steps 1 to 7, but I've put it in my own words. Now, a couple key things. You want to ask, is it a good time? Because if it's not a good time, if they're rushing out the door, if they're late for work, if little Bobby has, I don't know, forgotten his lunch and they're late, or their swimming kit, their mind is in 88 different places. So do ask, is it a good time? If it's not, say, don't worry, I'll give you a call back later. Number 3, it's really important to say, I don't know if it's for you. I don't know if it's up your street. I don't know if it'll be a match for you, whatever your words are. And you want to say that because it disarms them. It gives them permission to have a look without feeling obligated to say, yes, I want to join or go forward with you. And if people feel it's okay to look and then say no, guess what? They're going to have a look. Number 4, you're referring to their characteristics. You're appealing to pride and making them feel special, that you've actually thought about why them. And number 5 is about what's in it for them. If you can speak to them and connect them emotionally to what matters most to them, guess what? You're going to pique their curiosity. And if you pique their curiosity, people are going to have a look, if nothing else, because you made them curious. And that's really all we want, is for people to have a look. If they say thank you, but no thank you once they've looked, you know what? Fair enough, because it's not going to be for everybody. So a written profile could look like this. This is what the bottom half of your written profile is going to look like. And you can see we just follow steps 1 through to 7. If you normally talk to people through text messages or WhatsApp or Messenger or Snapchat, it might feel, and listen, you know, certainly for me, I never would have thought that, you know, I would be in contact with some of my friends now only through Messenger or WhatsApp. It's amazing how technology changes and evolves how we communicate with each other. So it's my first point of call for most of my friends and families. We speak on Messenger or on WhatsApp. So if you have relationships like that, then I know, and you know, it would seem really, really weird if you just phone them out of the blue when you haven't actually phoned them in months or years. In fact, one of my brothers, we only ever talk on text messages. And if he ever calls me, do you know, I don't answer the phone, hello. I answer the phone, what's wrong? That's how unusual it is for us to have the initial contact in a conversation. It's always done on text messages. So if you want to send a message first, it'll open the door and plant the seed and gets their permission for you to then give them a call. So when you call them, it's not such a shock. They're expecting your call and you still go straight into your profile that you've prepared. So here are a couple of examples of how you could message them to let them know you'd like to give them a call. The first one is, hey Chris, how are you doing? Hope you had a great summer. Hope you had a great Christmas. You know, hope the kids are all right. Make it personal as you normally would. I'm really excited. I've just found out how we can stay home with our children, still have a great full-time income. Let's talk so I can tell you more. One example. Another example is, hey Chris, how are you doing? Listen, there's something really excited I want to chat to you about. Can I give you a call a little bit later? It is just about saying, hey, I want to give you a call because there's something I want to talk to you about. And these examples, it refers to their hot button. So you can say, hey Jane, how are you doing? Hope you've had a great summer. Really excited. I've just found out how we can retire 5 years earlier on full pay. Let's talk so I can tell you more. You see what's happening in here? We're sending a text message and then we're taking it offline as quickly as possible. And the reason we want to take it offline is people buy people first. We want them to buy into your excitement and your enthusiasm. And with the best will in the world, your excitement and your enthusiasm just doesn't come through on a message in any way. Now, if you prepare your profile and you practice it, and listen, the more you do, the more comfortable you're going to get. If you're doing 15, 20, 25, 30 contacts a week, in fact, I guarantee, and Jane will back me up, by the end of your second week, you will be flying with this, okay? By the end of the second week, you'll have no more fears. Your tongue will no longer feel like it's swelling up the size of an elephant, and you'll be happy to talk to anybody, anywhere. So the more you do, the better you're going to get. Now, I know one of the things I was scared of was people asking me questions. And again, in your first steps to manager, the most often asked questions are all listed there. You just need to take a little bit of time to get comfortable with them. And I promise you, there are only ever going to be about 5 or 6 questions that will come up over and over and over again. So it's not like you need to learn how to answer 50 or 100 questions. It's really 5 or 6, and they're all here in your first steps to manager. If you've done a really good written profile, and if you've practiced it before you've spoken to them, do you know what question you're going to get asked the most? You're going to get asked, what is it? Now, if someone asks you, what is it? It's a really good thing. It means you have made them curious enough that they want to find out more. When they ask, what is it? It means you've prepared a really good profile, you've practiced it, and you've made a really effective call. So don't be afraid of questions. We say questions means they're interested in finding out more. So it's important you're prepared for questions, because if you're not getting questions, it means they're just saying yes just to fob you off and get you off the phone. So the what is it question is well done. You've piqued their curiosity. Now the danger with the question, what is it, is that that liquidizer of breakfast, lunch, and supper could come out all in one go. So you've got to be ready to stay on point and on message and answer briefly without trying to do everything in one go. And, you know, for me, I would just follow what's in the first steps to manager. When people say, what is it? I say, I'm glad you want to find out more. In a nutshell, it's a $2.5 billion organization. They have an impeccable 40-year track record, cash-rich, debt-free. We're in the health and wellness sector, as you know, and that, as you know, it's absolutely booming. Listen, I don't know if it's for you, but I'd just like to send some information for you to have a look at, or I'd just like to get together for a coffee and take you through the career brochure. So I answer the question to get right back onto our profile, get right back on task, which is inviting them to have a look at some information. It's either giving them the video or inviting them to meet me online or for a coffee to go through the one-to-one. I don't call it a one-to-one because they don't know what a one-to-one is. I call it, we'll go through the career brochure or we'll go through the company literature. So I try not to use jargon in any way. So the what is it question, you can even answer it even more briefly and say, I'm glad you want to find out more. It's quite a different way of working. The best thing to do is have a look at the video. I can message you the link right now and I can call you back in a few minutes. You don't even have to go into any of that detail if you feel a bit nervous or a bit anxious to start with. So just say, I'm glad you want to find out more. The video will tell you all you need to know. Can I send it to you right now and I'll call you back shortly. That's the what is it question. Some of the other questions are going to be down here. And all of these questions, is it selling? Is it pyramid? Is it MLM? Is it Amway, Herbalife, Clean Easy? Is it ABC company? All of those questions will say to me that they're asking those questions for a reason. Either that they've had an experience, good or bad, or they know of someone who has had an experience, good or bad. And before I can really address that question, I need to understand what perspective they're coming from. A phrase we use is, before I can address their issue, I have to seek to understand first before I can be understood. Write that down. That phrase has served me well in my forever career. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. And this is where you would use it. Let me give you a couple of examples. If someone asks, is it selling? I can remember being with my very first FBO. Her name is Julie, and I was at her house, and she took a call, and the woman asked, is it selling? And Julie went on to do a 15-minute monologue about how it wasn't selling, because in Julie's mind, she was convinced this woman was asking her, is it selling, because she didn't want to do selling, because 95% of the people don't want to do selling. So at the end of this 15-minute monologue explaining how it wasn't selling, guess what the woman said? Oh, what a shame, because I really love selling. You know, she'd lost her credibility at that point. So instead of launching into a monologue, if someone asks, is it selling? Your response is, just as it is here in your first steps to manager, you can say, hey, that's an interesting question. What makes you ask that? Or, hey, Jane, that's a really unusual question. Where is that coming from? And wait for the answer. And they can say, well, because I've always really enjoyed selling and anything like that. And then you can say, great, you're going to love what I've got to show you. If they say, well, I don't want to do selling, I don't want to do anything like it, you can say, great, you're going to love what I've got to show you. It's just about getting them to the stage of accepting some information. Now, they might say, is it pyramid selling? And again, the automatic response is, and I want everybody writing this down 5 times, automatic response. That's an interesting question. What makes you ask that? Because our initial reaction is to think they're asking because they've had a negative experience. So let me tell you one of my experience, many times actually in my forever career. One of my team members, she's now in Spain. I remember speaking to Nadine many years ago, and I did the profile. I invited her to meet me for a coffee because she used to live locally, so I could talk her through our company literature. And her question was, Diana, is it anything like Amway? And I thought, oh, here we go. And I said, well, that's an interesting question, Nadine. Why do you ask that? And she said, I was involved with Amway many, many, many years ago. And although the company wasn't right for me and the products weren't right for me, personal development that network marketing introduced me to has stood me in good stead for the rest of my career. So if it's anything like that, I'm definitely interested in finding out more. Now, I know you guys are just as shocked as I was because I would have expected a negative reaction. Another example is I spoke to an old colleague of mine who lives in Scotland, and I remember her saying to me, her name is Sharon, and Sharon said to me, but Diana, is it anything like pyramid selling? And my reaction could have been, oh, no, 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 no. But I stuck to the script and I asked her, you know what, Sharon, that's a really interesting question. What makes you ask that? And she said, you know what, when I was growing up, my aunt was involved in a perfume company that was a pyramid system. And she was really good at, she loved working with people. She was very, very successful, earned a lot of money, but sadly the company went out of business. So if it's anything like that, I'm definitely interested. The danger could have been I could have gone on and said loads and loads and loads of things to hide or make it sound like it wasn't what it really is. We're a network marketing company. Now, sometimes people will have had a negative experience, and it's important to give them an opportunity to get it off their chest. So in some cases, I'll say, it's an interesting question. Why do you ask that? It's generally asked if they say it's is it network marketing, MLM, Amway, Herbalife, etc., etc. That's an interesting question. What makes you ask that? And the response could be, well, you know, my sister, my brother-in-law was involved in something like that, and they had a garage full of product, or they lost a lot of money. And I'll ask questions. I'll say, well, tell me a bit more about what happened, and tell me a bit more about the training and support they received, and tell me what kind of investment that they were asked to make. I want to seek to understand what their issues were before I'm going to be understood myself. Because if they tell me what all the things that went wrong, guess what? Then I can tell them that none of those things are going to happen with forever. So if it can give you, the extra freedom, the flexibility to work around your family and still do something meaningful, can I send you a video to have a look at? And I go right back to my profile. Now you're probably thinking, oh, Diana, it just rolls off the tongue. Yeah, well, it should do. I've been doing this 16 years. If it did roll off the tongue, I'd be a little bit worried, wouldn't you? But I started just where everybody else does, and I just really focused on practicing these few things. If you're getting questions like, well, how much does it cost and how much are you earning in this very first contact, I guarantee you're not sticking to the outline of the conversation in your book. If you're sticking to the profile that we've taken you through, steps 1 to 7, here, I promise you'll only ever get asked the questions that are listed in your first steps to manager. If you're going off track, yes, you will start getting asked other questions, which means the issue isn't the questions. The issue is go back and practice your profiling. Be prepared for that call. So if we look at, okay, so we've covered this, we've covered that. So everything you need is here. When people say, I haven't got the time, that's an interesting one for me. I would answer that one with the question. I'll say, well, how much time do you think it takes? Simple, put it back on them, because we know you can work this business very, very part-time or very, 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 very full-time and anything in between. So just put it back on them and see what their thoughts are.